2025. And what's happening on the Bitcoin and crypto markets? Well, today, the assets, since yesterday actually, um, about an hour and a half into the traditional markets in the US, um, they began to drop. And why did they begin to drop? Well, if you look at that little initial pump they had during the early part of the day, well, that was to be expected because that's very often what you'll see before a nice little move in the opposite direction, right? Assets are constantly distributing and mean reverting. Well, they had a little bit more distribution to do to the upside, and then they began to mean revert to the downside. And right now, they're in the middle of continuing their mean reversions. For example, on the 4 hour time frames, you'll see that there are assets mean reverting to the downside, like Bitcoin and Solana, and a bunch of bonk and other meme coins, and other cryptos that have 4 hour mean reversions in progress to the downside. And when those complete, right, each in their own time. And by the way, that doesn't have to. It doesn't mean they're necessarily going to go straight there from now. Right? They could go a bit sideways. They could go back up for a while. Right? It could take a while before they actually complete those mean reversions. But when they do complete those mean reversions, then they will begin distributing away from that RMLR again. Of course, where they are in relation to the other RMLRs at that time, or the power mean, right, etc., will also determine which direction they're likely to go. So, for example, if Bitcoin were to drop right now to complete that 3012, the mean reversion to the 3012 RMLR on the 4 hour time frame, I'm not sure if it's still feasible, but it might. I haven't looked at the band this morning, so I don't know. But as of yesterday, if it had done it yesterday, then it would have done that by hitting the third band to the downside of the 1110 RMLR, which would have set up a mean reversion to the upside after that was done, hitting that band for a couple candles, right? But not to worry, because whether it hits it or not, right, for example, if Bitcoin completes the mean reversion to the 4 hour 3012 RMLR, well, guess what? It has a mean reversion to complete to the upside as well, like on the daily. Yeah. So whenever that happens, it'll happen, right? Could be today, could be this week, could be this month, could be next month. Who knows? It could take a while for a daily time frame mean reversion to actually complete, right? Especially if you got a lot of zigzagging back and forth because of daily distributions, because of distributions and mean reversion of all kinds of different time frames and random walks and trending moves. So, you know, that's why we always say it can go up, down, or it's going to go up, down, or sideways, right? But at least with the VEPS information, you can know what is the likely direction that it's actually going to go at any given moment, especially if you're looking at lower time frames, because you can see it happen right in front of you, right? And that's why it makes sense to trade lower time frames, because you can see it happening right in front of you. So which way is it going to go? Well, like I just said, keep an eye on the VEPS, because that is what will tell you the likely direction of what's happening on the low time frames that you ought to be trading anyway, if you're an intraday trader, right? Or a scalper, or whatever you want to call it. So, big picture, what does that mean for crypto? What does that mean for Bitcoin and alts? Big picture, Bitcoin continues to have an ongoing running supply shock system. What do I mean by that? Well, there's an imbalance between the amount of Bitcoin being mined and Bitcoin being bought every day. Something like 30 times the amount of Bitcoin that is maybe it's between 10 and 30 times, depends on the day. But anywhere between 10 and 30 times as many Bitcoins that are mined every day are being bought. Right? There's like, I think there's like, what is it, maybe 1,200 Bitcoins are being bought every day on average. Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's a few thousand. Between all the big players, around the world that are buying tons of Bitcoins. There's only like 120 or something Bitcoins being mined every day, right? What is it? There's a bit more than that. There's there's a block mined every 10 minutes, right? Times 6 in an hour, right? So 6 blocks in an hour, times 24, right? So 100 and whatever that is, 148 or something like that. Blocks in a day, times 3 and a bit. So it's like 400, Bitcoins a day or something being mined. And we're seeing anywhere from, yeah, we're seeing upwards of several thousand coins a day being purchased between all the big companies, like all yes, Strategy and Meta Planet or whatever, and different smaller companies that are also buying significant amounts, and 21 Capital and all these other companies are buying as much as they can, as well as all the big ETF issuers who have a significant amount. Like people forget, people think, oh, MicroStrategy is the biggest holder of Bitcoin apart from Satoshi. Actually, no, the biggest holder apart from Satoshi is BlackRock. They actually hold more than MicroStrategy, right? They hold more than 600,000 already Bitcoins. So they're actually the largest holder right now of Bitcoins apart from Satoshi. And they are soon to eclipse Satoshi, probably, maybe even this year, right? Who knows if they will or won't, but that's their aim. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens, at which point they will have a Nakamoto, which is 1 million Bitcoins, right? Satoshi Nakamoto has about 1 Nakamoto, a little bit more. And that's the goal of BlackRock, and that's the goal of Strategy. They also want to have a Nakamoto, right? And when they do, then they'll be in that rarefied league of very large bag holders. Yeah. Cute dog. And so they're aiming for that significant amount to be holding, which if they do, will make each of those companies holders of, what are like 4% of all the Bitcoin or something crazy. Which means there won't be a lot to go around for anybody else. So, I mean, look, Bitcoin is already owned by the super wealthy, right? It's 95% owned by the biggest bags in the world. And most millionaires and billionaires still don't even have any. Or they obviously don't have a whole Bitcoin, right? And they never will. They will be shut out of that future, which is why they are pushing for stablecoin deregulation, because that's their ticket to converting their fiat fortunes into crypto fortunes that can be quote unquote stable coins pegged to the dollar, even though the dollar keeps falling in purchasing power. But it's an easy way to on-ramp customers, and they can take fees for custodial services, etc. So, of course, they want that. And hello to the people in the chat. And so, yeah, there's a massive supply shock, right? A massive supply shock coming. Meanwhile, why is there a supply shock coming? Because, again, there's more being bought than being mined. The price is only going to go up if there's a continued demand and a low supply, right? And most people that own it already are whales and banks and governments, right? The average retail trader does not own any Bitcoin. Even if 50, 60 million people own some Bitcoin, even 100 million people own some Bitcoin around the world, that's really nothing out of 8 billion people on the planet that it was designed to support. And it is becoming very slowly but surely an ideal candidate to be the next world reserve currency, at which point people will need to use it for different kinds of things. They may say, well, nobody's going to use it to buy their toast or their groceries. Right, maybe. But people will use it to have as their reserve stack in their bank, their Bitcoin bank, which would be their wallet, ideally. And most people will use their banking service for that because they'd rather some other party has that responsibility than be their own bank. But then, not your keys, not your crypto, right? If you give that control to someone else and they lose it, there's nothing you can do about it, right? You gave them that right. You gave them that privilege to own your money, basically. And you pay them for it, which is even crazier. So there's a supply shock incoming. It is massive. That doesn't mean their prices have to soar this week or next week or even next month or even the month after or even in September. It could, but might not happen. Might not even happen this year. It might be that we have a situation where if all the retail holders decide, you know what, if it makes a little push up to 150 grand and it's like midsummer and I can see that things are getting kind of quiet and there's, like the steam is running out and no one's even talking about Bitcoin, even though it's at 150 grand, then I'm just going to dump it, take my profits and walk away. Guess who's going to buy it, right? The big bags. Well, what happens if instead of taking another 10 years for the big bags to own 99% of this stuff, what happens if they own it this year, like 99%? Then the only people who will be buying and selling it will be themselves. And obviously miners who mine the stuff, right? So think about that. And obviously miners don't want to sell all of it, right? That's why they mine it. They don't mine it to sell all of it. They mine it to have some for themselves. Sure, they sell some to keep the lights on, keep the operations running, but they keep as much as they can. And right now we know that the biggest buyers are buying 10, 20, 30 times as much as is mined in a day. Well, if they're buying many times more than is mined in a day, that means they're not getting it just from the miners, right? They're getting it OTC, which is quickly drying out. It's pretty much dry from what we hear across different OTC desks. But they don't really have much left to sell, if at all. And so that means they have to buy from retail holders on the exchanges, right? Well, if they're buying from retail holders on the exchanges, there's not many of those left. We know that. Definitely less than 1 million right now. Like less than 700,000 from what we know. Some people will tell you, oh, no, it's 2 million. Some people will tell you, no, it's 200,000. It's somewhere in the middle. And it's probably not 1 million. Right? We can see it. We can see how many are available on different exchanges. It really depends on which day you look at it because it changes all the time. You got to remember, just because somebody has their Bitcoin on an exchange doesn't mean that they're willing to sell it. They might just be keeping it there cold. Like that might be their version of a cold wallet because they trust that the exchange is a safe place to keep it, even though, exchanges have been hacked, etc. So, keep that in mind. And remember that, there are other cryptos that right now are mostly held by retail that are fully distributed and fully decentralized, like Cardano, like Litecoin. I mentioned these two guys a lot, that have many of the same wonderful qualities as Bitcoin. Litecoin has all the same qualities as Bitcoin. The only difference is the amount of nodes and miners. But most people who are mining Litecoin are also mining Bitcoin, right? because why wouldn't you, right? Um, and you can get more than 1,000 Litecoins right now for the price of one Bitcoin, which is crazy. When you realize there's only 4 times as many Litecoins as there are Bitcoins, which means if the price went even to 1% of the price of Bitcoin, which it has been before, if it went to even 1%, that would be a 10x in price, right? More than a 10x in price. So if right now, if it's 800, if it's $88, so if you're more than 10x, let's say you 11x or 12x it, it'd be about $1,000 Litecoin, and that would be like 1%, roughly, I mean even less than 1% of the Bitcoin, which is crazy when you think there's only 4 times as many Litecoins as there are Bitcoins. It's insane, and it has all the same technical specs, and it works very well, like swapping with Bitcoin. You get very, very low transaction fees, of course, very fast, swap times, because Litecoin is just a fork of Bitcoin, and anything that happens on Bitcoin happens first on Litecoin because it's the test bed, right? In terms of like major upgrades or anything like that, that's what it's for. It's the test net, and people do use it for that. And yeah, you can have ordinals, you can have runes, all that stuff. You can have all that stuff on Litecoin. It's just a question of, which services do people want to use, etc. Which kind of crypto do they want? And is Litecoin actually like the silver to Bitcoin's gold, if you will? I would posit, yeah, absolutely. In many ways, it is. In many ways, it's better because it's more practical. Bitcoin's great and all. It's the original. It's, Coke is it, as they say, right? But at the same time, Litecoin is extremely practical and does a fantastic job of doing what it does. Right? Did you, by the way, last year at the Bitcoin conference, at the same time as the Bitcoin conference, there was the Litecoin conference, and last year the Litecoin conference made a bit of a splash. It was kind of in the news, in the crypto news, a little bit. This year at the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas, there was also a Litecoin conference happening at the same time. Did you even know that? Like, it typically happens around the same time, but were you even aware that it happened this year? It's as if it went on without anybody noticing, right? Last year, the Bitcoin conference had President Trump speaking. Well, before he was president, candidate Trump. So, and a lot of people paid attention to that. And Michael Saylor came out and said some pretty radical things and announced that he wanted to get, 1 million Bitcoin. He suggested other companies and governments do the same. So it was like, right? It means that Litecoin is likely to see some insane distribution because we've seen some insane, massive, long-lasting mean reversion for so long. And there's only so long that can happen before that stops happening, right? Eventually what happens is kind of obvious. When you have such a powerful asset laying low for so long, having all of the same quality traits as the most powerful asset on the market, right? You got the clone, and like not the cheap knockoff clone, the original clone that actually has the respect of all the developers of the original, because it's the one that they use to do testing on and stuff. What do you think's going to happen? What do you think's going to happen? Think about it. If you said it's going to explode in price, you're probably right. Now, could it just die? Yeah, it could just die. We don't know, right? It could just die. It's entirely possible that it just dies. Is it probable that it's going to die? Well, if this was a normal venture, sure, it's probable. Because normally 9 out of 10 new ventures fail. That's what happens. Statistically, they fail. But Bitcoin and Litecoin are not regular ventures, are they? They're cryptocurrencies. They're assets in a relatively new asset class. And they're some of the oldest among them. Bitcoin being the first that was, scalable, that solved all the problems. And Litecoin being basically one of the earliest new coins, altcoins. People forked Bitcoin before Litecoin, right? But it was the first one that was created as a testnet, right? Um, yeah. Anyway, trading Discord. The link is alphatradinghq.com/Discord, or you can just go to the alphatradinghq.com website and click the Discord link. And it's free to join the Discord. You can get free access to the Volatility Starter Pack by going to the Discord, going to the Request Support channel. It's called like #request support. You click the button there that says Create Ticket, and then in there you just enter your TradingView username so that we can hook you up with the free access to the Volatility Starter chart. And you get free indicators with that. You get a free pre-populated chart, free access to educational information, free access to the chats where we talk about this stuff, free access to the live streams where you can not just listen and watch, but you can actually participate. You can ask questions, like even from the very first time you're in the live stream. You can ask questions right there in the Discord in the live stream. You can also ask questions on Rumble, but we're not always watching that particular video stream, even though we do stream it there live. It's really there just there for people who missed the actual live stream in the Discord and want to watch it later. Sometimes people watch it on Rumble for whatever reason. Hi there. I see all you folks saying hello. Good morning to you. What do I do for work? Well, I mean, I trade. I trade Bitcoin. I trade altcoins. But I've been running a marketing company for many, 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 many years. Marketing and development, stuff like that. We do software development, etc. But we focus on marketing since forever. Yeah. What do you do? Since you're asking me. Anyways, the point is you can come into the Alpha Trading live stream. It's totally interactive. It's an educational experience. The whole point of it is we show people for free how to use the tools that we built and the methods that we use to trade. And we're not shilling links to affiliates and all this garbage. We show you our tools. You can have access to our tools for free to learn with the basic tools that we have. That are, when I say basic, I mean they're extremely powerful. They are the tools we actually used to trade when we first built them, because those were the first ones we built. And then after we developed other tools and we started to use those, then we decided, you know what, we'll just let people get these tools for free, the basics, and we'll only charge for these other ones that are more advanced and have premium features, etc. So there are tools people can subscribe to if they want, like with a subscription, a paid subscription, but most people just use the free tools, and that's fine. We're not in the business of selling you tools all day long. Like, we're not out here trying to shill you tools like so many, or indicators like so many YouTube crypto people, or people talking about crypto and trading and stuff like that. They're always trying to sell you their courses for $500 or $1,000, or their tools for $500, $1,000 a month, that kind of stuff. We have one set of tools you can buy if you want, and we do have private tutoring. It's available, which includes the set of tools like private tool, the premium tools for an entire year, plus a whole bunch of one-on-one sessions, right? Unlike all the other people selling you courses, Our courses are not just here go watch these videos. No, we actually give you one-on-one time, right? So like it's like 12 hours of learning with me or with Bilbo, right? For example, if either one of us is to be your tutor, and only co-founders can be tutors. Like we've never certified anybody to represent us. We're doing teaching because we know how to use the tools because we're part of the team that built them, and we use them every day. We do live streams every day to show people how to use them. So we take it personally upon us to do it, and it's I mean the price is ridiculously low, to be honest, but we don't care. Like I said, we're not in this to make money from selling indicators or even tutoring services. We're in this to help people learn a better way to trade. That's it. So if you want to learn a better way to trade, Monday through Saturday, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern time, we do live streams, and you could participate totally free. Even if you don't subscribe to our tools or anything like that, it's totally free. Come and learn, come and watch. Even if you don't have any of our free tools, you should have our free tools because they're free. No reason not to, right? They're right there on TradingView. If you use TradingView to look at your charts, if you're a retail trader and you don't use TradingView, I mean, I don't understand, but because like it's like the site for charting. I know there's others, but you can have a free account on TradingView. So, and you can use our tools on the free account. And there's some workarounds to how to do it, but I highly recommend. Like I'm gonna actually show TradingView to you more than our own tools. Like I highly recommend if you're trading seriously, if you want to trade seriously, you should get some kind of paid account on TradingView. Which level up to you. But like if you're gonna be a plumber, are you gonna show up to your client's house with a Fisher Price plumbing set? Or are you going to show up with a professional plumbing tool set? Right? It's the same thing. You're going to show up with the freebie version of a TradingView account if you're a trader, or you're going to show up with a paid version because you take yourself seriously and you want to have access to more features and being able to put a few more indicators on the charts to be able to see what's actually happening, right? It's the same thing. So it doesn't matter which one you get to me. I don't care. But I highly recommend if you're a trader, right? Which most people aren't, and most people should not be, right? Because most people suck at trading. They all think they're going to be great at it, but they're not. So if you're a trader, of course, you should have a real trading view account, and I think they're I don't even know how cheap they are, but they're pretty cheap if you get like their annual plan. I think their cheapest one is like maybe $10 a month or something. It's cheap. It's cheap. Um, yeah. So anyway, enough of that. But yeah, come and get your free access to our tools, like free, zero cost, nothing. And come get your free education from us. And that's gonna do it for now, folks. We're gonna get rolling. We're gonna get cranking on this day. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Happy trading. Keep it safe. Peace. Cheers.